Today, Cuso would celebrate the gains and successes towards gender equality. We want to acknowledge the gaps in the work to be completed, and we also want to express our gratitude to our partners and stakeholders who participated in the gender research that was done that laid the groundwork for the strategy that we're going to be launching. So the research that was undertaken, it's entitled A Gender Action Plan for Cuso Guyana, Addressing Inequalities Between Men and Women. And I just want to highlight some things about the title. When we say addressing inequalities between men and women, because we want to recognize that gender is about men and women. It's about recognizing the differences between men and women, looking at the particular issues or circumstances affecting men and women in social, political, or economic life. There's often a misconception that gender is about women. Sometimes I go out to meetings, and when we try to talk about gender, people say, "Oh, why are you talking about women?" Well, I just want to clarify, gender is not about women. It's about men and women. Having said that, reality is that women are often the most disadvantaged, despite all the advances, and we've heard about a few this morning. You would see women in powerful positions. When you look at things overall, women are most disadvantaged, and that's why sometimes, or most times, in the international community, the term gender equality and empowerment of women is often used. The Millennium Development Goals have really failed when it comes to equality of women, and the focus is now being looked at the post-Millennium Development Goals, or the Sustainable Development Goals, to make sure that we can address the issues of men and women. So the Guyana Gender Evaluation and Research Project is aimed to provide Cuso Guyana with insights into gender issues facing men and women in Guyana, and we did this through desk research and field research. We looked at the legislative and policy context in Guyana, and I can tell you there are lots and lots of legislations and policies that are passed in Guyana. The issue is implementation of those policies and legislations. And then we also took a statistical snapshot of some of the issues. But we should say, though, most people don't necessarily believe that the statistics are true. And I don't think that we should necessarily, for the purpose of our research, we use the statistics to give us a benchmark of work that needs to be done, rather than the final truth about an issue. It doesn't mean it doesn't represent it, but it is a benchmark that we're using. The research involved 91 persons, or 91 people were consulted. 68 of them were women and 23 of them were men. It was done in 4 regions: Georgetown, Berbice, East Berbice, Lethem, and the Rupununi. Just some information on the research. We had 30% of persons under the age of 30. There was research, 43% Afro-Guyanese, 30% Amerindian, 17% Indo-Guyanese, and 10% other ethnicities. Cuso, in conducting the research, we set 6 parameters or themes to guide the research, and they were education, health, violence, employment and small business, leadership, and climate change. So the research focused around those areas. Coming out from the research, there are 4 key priority areas that were identified, which are the areas that are guiding or informing the strategy. The first one, male violence against women, it was considered a top priority issue by those persons who were interviewed. The second priority, employment opportunities for men and women, and this was identified as an issue for both men and women. The issue for women, it was framed as lack of jobs and income-generating opportunities. And for men, it was unemployment and underemployment. Under equality rights, so we looked at female empowerment and role models. Some of the issues to be addressed there that came out were the pressure for women to fit into rigidly defined work and family roles, women's rights awareness, so women themselves being aware of their rights, and the access to education and skills training. Most people believe that primary and secondary education must be improved. There were lots of complex issues that were talked about, but although we have high high enrollment rates in the primary school. I think it's 96%. In the secondary school, we have only 72% of girls and 66% of boys going. So taking all of that into consideration, Cuso has developed our gender strategy, and it aims to improve the enabling environment for equality for men and women in Guyana. And we're looking at 3 components for our gender strategy. One, access to education and employment. The second one, gender-based violence. And then the third one is gender mainstreaming. We believe if we're to achieve this, the aim, then it relies on the united efforts of our staff, our volunteers, our partners, and other stakeholders that are working in this sector. And we see our strategy, it is a 3-year strategy, but we also see it as being a live strategy, so that a strategy that we can go back and make changes or amendments to as we're implementing or as things change. So that's our strategy. In terms of next steps for the strategy, we're in the process of recruiting a Cuso volunteer who is going to act as a gender advisor. And some of the immediate things for that volunteer to look at is to review the recommendations that came out in the research report, to proactively help us identify new partners of Cuso to implement the strategy, to develop and offer, facilitate training for the Cuso staff, volunteers, partners, so that we can all further the gender equality role. Cuso also has to solicit funds for activities. So we have the gender strategy. One of the next steps really to get funding so that we can implement the strategy, build and strengthen partnerships around the strategy. Like I mentioned, the volunteer is going to support that. We are going to make sure that new volunteers who come to Cuso Guyana are oriented on gender, and then identify some of the priority actions for the coming year. So in presenting our strategy, I think we're also saying or advocating to the organizations, to the representative of the organizations that are here, to let's work together to achieve equality for all. As long as outmoded ways of thinking prevent women from making a meaningful contribution to society, progress will be slow. As long as the nation refuses to acknowledge the equal role of more than half of itself, it is doomed to failure. And this was Nelson Mandela in 1996. You heard and I heard.